And if you don't love it, you're not going to cherish it. But I stopped by to tell you, just in case some of you may be wondering and haven't figured it out yet, I love the Old Northwestern. I said, I love the Old Northwestern. Missionary Baptist Association. And it is because of my love for this association and this Congress, it is why I support it. It is not only why I support it, but it is why I respect it. Why I cherish it. And do all that I can to protect it. Because you have to understand, beyond profession, there must be performance. Beyond decision, there must be some deeds. You see, if we spend all of our time in the mass movement of Sunday morning, then somebody will knock on our door on Monday and say, I was thirsty. And you didn't give me anything to drink. If we spend all of our time dancing and shouting and speaking in tongues and clapping our hands and forget our performance in the world, somebody will knock on our door on Monday and say, I was naked and you didn't clothe me. If we spend all of our time preaching 3 points, a poem, and a hoop, then somebody will show up Monday and say, I was hungry and you didn't feed me. I was in prison and you didn't visit me. I would dare say tonight that it's a heresy when the church spends all of its time in commotion and motion without movement. It's a heresy when we spend time meeting just to meet, to plan the meeting about the meeting that we don't even meet about. It's a heresy when we continue to have large meetings with small agendas. Understand, brothers and sisters, we cannot walk into the forest of civilization. We cannot walk into the forest of evangelism equipped with nothing but the axe handle. We need the axe head. Because if we show up in the forest of evangelism, Brother Wilson, with nothing but the axe handle, we're going to make a lot of noise, but no trees will fall. And I'm afraid that is what's happening in a whole lot of situations. And a whole lot of our churches that I've had a chance to visit and preach in a whole lot of them. And I discovered that most of what they're doing is making noise. But ain't no trees falling. It is as though that we have lost our axe head. Turn to your neighbor and say, don't be guilty of losing the axe head. I wish I had some witnesses. Turn with me to John chapter 4, verses 5 through 10. And I want to say a word or two about the text, and I'm going to take my seat. It's already calling my name. Then cometh he to the city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near the parcel of ground that Jacob gave his son Joseph. Now Jacob's well was there, and Jesus therefore, being weary with his journey, sat thus on the well. And it was about the 6th hour. And there cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water, and Jesus said unto her, give me to drink. For his disciples were gone away unto the city to buy meat. Then said the woman of Samaria unto him, how is it that thou, being a Jew, ask of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. And Jesus answered and said unto her, if thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that said unto thee, give me a drink, thou would have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. Our text is found in the Gospel of John. And the Gospel of John is filled with long discourses describing not only Jesus' humanity, but his divinity. John seems to take us behind the scene of Jesus' earthly ministry, where we get a glimpse of what it means to not only be a disciple of Christ, but what it means to believe in Jesus as flesh of eternal and the living God. and as a source of light and love. Though John's narrative differs from the synoptic gospels, it includes the basics of Jesus' life and ministry, his preaching, his miracles, his trial, his crucifixion, and his resurrection. All right. John offers a brief statement at the end of his gospel there in chapter 21 and verse 25. And listen what John says. He says, now there are many other things that Jesus did and said. Were every one of them to be written, he said, I suppose the world itself could not contain the books that could be written. That's right. You know what John was saying? John said there are so many wonderful things about Jesus, about the things that he said and did, that even the Library of Congress of the United States could not contain. Are y'all going to help me here? Out of the 33 years that Jesus lived, he only ministered 3 years. And in those 3 years, the world could not contain all that he did. And it's almost amazing. I mean, I even myself give out of breath sometimes, just imagining how busy Jesus was and how demanding his ministry was, because, you know, the thirst of the world was predicated on his shoulders. But in the 3 years, he shook the world and turned it upside down. And you know what? He never lost his cool. He was so busy that he often had to flee the impressing demands of the crowd. But when you look at the text tonight that's been opened before us, Jesus gets a whiff that the religious authorities of that day are grumbling and mumbling because he was hanging around and baptizing more people than John. All right. Come on. All right. And that didn't sound good to him. And actually, those of us who are readers of the Bible and who are scholars actually know that Jesus didn't do no baptizing no way. His disciples did the baptizing. But simply because they were talking about him. Simply because they were complaining. He thought it was best that he just leave town and head on back up to Galilee. And let me just stop and say to the brethren that, brethren, Jesus gives us an example here that you need to know when it's the best time to leave. You need to know when it's the right time to leave. Do I have a witness here? I wish I had some witnesses here. Now notice he understood that simply because they were talking about him there, simply because the tide of public opinion had gone against him. He wasn't just going to stay and hang around there and die. But he understood that there were some other places that he could go where they would be receptive to what he had to say. I've seen some fellows just die in churches. The folk want them to leave. Even his wife and children want him to leave, but he just keep hanging around. Leave that alone. You got to know when to leave. But Marvin, there was only one problem with him leaving Judea and headed back up to Galilee. He had to go through Samaria to get there. You know, the Samaritans and the Jews didn't get along. They were sort of like the Hatfields and the McCoys. And some of y'all can call some other names. And they're not outside the church, some of them in the church. Families fighting one another and competing against one another. I call them those dominant, prominent families. Y'all ain't gonna say nothing. But these Jews and Samaritans, they were sort of like mortal enemies. And so if you were a Jew, you didn't consider speaking to a Samaritan. And so the Bible tells us it's afternoon time and Jesus enters a city called Sychar. And there he finds a well and sits on the well to rest while the disciples go buy some food. Jesus is just sitting on the well, just waiting there. And all of a sudden, a Samaritan woman comes to the well to get water. The text says the woman came to draw water. Amen. Now, what blew my mind was that Jesus got to the well before the woman did. Are y'all going to help me preach this tonight? A woman, a Samaritan woman, came to draw water. It was hot in the afternoon, and all homegirl wanted to do was get a cool drink of water and get out of Dodge. But God had another plan. Touch your neighbor and say, God had another plan. And I said to myself, how did he know that this particular woman would show up at a particular place at a particular time? But I need you to understand that God is so predestined in your life that he knows where you're going to be even before you get there. Amen. And may I suggest to you tonight that for 365 days, he's been sitting on the well, waiting for you. For some of you, he's been waiting 20 years. For some of you, he's been waiting 30 and some 40, some 50, some 60, maybe 70 years. And guess what? He's still waiting at the well. He's waiting for you to show up. He's sitting on the well. And he's waiting for her. And you just might want to stop right now, you know, and just give God some praise for waiting on you. I know we're in the Congress. Is there anybody in here tonight who can shout, thank you, God, for waiting on me? I mean, other folk gave up on me, but you waited on me. Come on, slap somebody high five and say, he waited on me. Come on, tell him, say, he waited on me. He waited on me. He's sitting at the well, waiting on you. And Elizabeth, the reason why he sat there and waited, because he knew that you would show up. He knew that somehow or another you with your crazy self and all of your issues, but he sat by the well because he knew that any day now that you would show up. What am I saying? He waited while you were drunk, perverted, confused, blind, crippled, and crazy in your sin. But he waited. He didn't go pick somebody else, but he waited on you because he said he or she will be here in a minute. Do I have a witness here? So he waited. And I've often wondered why it is that we are so ashamed to tell people that God waited on us. Is there anybody here honestly can turn to your neighbor and say, baby, be real with you, he waited on me. He let you do whatever you wanted to do, how long you wanted to do it, who you wanted to do it with, and where you wanted to do it at, but he waited on me. I feel a preaching fit. Sat down by the well while you drank and smoked and partied. I wish I had a witness here. Because he knew that you were going to show up. Do I have a witness here? And I can hear him saying, she may not be right when she get here. He may not have it all together when he get here, but I'm going to wait right here. Let me deal with homegirl for a moment. Now, you know she wasn't well liked among the women of that day. Amen. She didn't have the benefit of an entourage like the other ladies had. She traveled alone. And I've often wondered why it was that they didn't like her. And I said, maybe the reason why they didn't like her because they're me indeed. Can I just tell the truth? Stay in church and shame the devil tonight? Not too much has changed. There's still some women around the church that other women don't like, and they ain't done nothing to it. What has she done to you? She ain't done nothing to me. I just don't like it. Just something about it. This was one of those women. But she came with her water pots. She came with a kind of thirst that comes from one who has been passed up, one who has been passed over, one who has been passed by and passed around by many men. She comes with a kind of thirst of being rejected by women. And you got to understand that people congregated at the well because some of them were thirsty. Some of them came to the well, right, because some of them desperately needed water. Now, some came to get the latest gospel. Because you got to understand, that's where all of the business of the town was transacted. And if you wanted to know anything that was going on in somebody's house, if you wanted to get the 411, if you wanted to get the business, all you had to do was show up at the well. So many of y'all ever been in the social circle? And if that well is still there in town, you stop there and read the story about that well. There was only one well in that area of Walden County. And people who lived out far in the county, they would come to town to get water to carry back to their house. And since they had to come from a long way, they would take time to gather around the well and strike up conversation. And so thus they called the town social circle. Yeah, so people came to the well for a whole lot of different reasons, but this woman came because she was thirsty. And if the truth be told, some of you came to Carver Grove tonight, not so much that you were coming to the conference, not so much that you were a delegate, but somebody came tonight because you were thirsty. Anybody in here thirsty tonight? Anybody in here need some water? Homegirl came to get water and just get on out of Dodge. She didn't come to the well looking for a man. Not her. Because if you read the text, she had already made 5 trips to the altar. It's in the text. And if you read it a little further, you will discover that the new man in her life that she left at home in the bed was not her. Y'all don't like the truth tonight. Told her, don't you go nowhere. I'm going to tell them to get a little water. And I'll be back. We're going to finish what we started. Let me preach tonight. And so on this hot afternoon, she came for some water. Watch the text. The Bible says she came and found this man, a stranger, sitting there. Now understand, this woman was not a stranger to Samaria, but she was a stranger to Jesus. In other words, she was a stranger because she had never met him. But he was not a stranger to her. Are y'all going to help me here? And one of the things that she didn't recognize, Kevin Daniels, was that Jesus was a well sitting on top of a well. Because it was he who had said, I am the water of life. And if you drink of me, then you will spring up well. Because you got to understand, my brothers and sisters, what the well was physically, Jesus is spiritual. Understand what the well was in the natural, Jesus was in the spiritual. Are y'all going to help me here? And Jesus is the well that we come to when we are spiritually thirsty. And let me hasten to say tonight that thirst is an inner need. What am I saying tonight, President? That listen, people can be all around you. You can be surrounded by a multiplicity of folk, and they never know that you're thirsty. Are y'all gonna help me here? I mean spiritually thirsty, because when you are spiritually thirsty, spiritual thirst does not have any signs. Spiritual thirst does not have any sound. You can be thirsty and nobody knows it because it's an inner craving. And it's that spiritual thirst that brings you out of the world into the church and brings you from the back pew to the front pew and brings you from the front pew to the altar to membership. Simply because you were thirsty. She comes to the well because she is thirsty, and she comes carrying years and years of unfulfillment on her back. And one well she knows, and the other well she doesn't. One well speaks to her, and the other well is passive and doesn't do anything. And when I look at this text tonight, I see the conflict of thirst in this text, because I see her thirst battling against his thirst. All right. And preachers, y'all can work with that. Her thirst battling against his thirst. Her thirst versus his thirst. Watch the text, because the Bible says that Jesus asked her, a drink of water. He didn't ask her for no Kool-Aid. He didn't ask her for no iced tea. No. But he asked her for some water. He asked her for something that he knew she didn't have. I mean, because after all, if she had something to drink, she would have never been at the well. Let me ask you. Are y'all going to talk to me here? Did you not know that sometimes the master will ask you for stuff that you don't have? Y'all ain't talking to me here tonight. Sometimes the master will not only ask you for stuff that you don't have, but sometimes he'll ask you to do what you cannot do. All right. Because he knows that it is through him we can do all things. You remember that in Matthew 12 and 13 when Jesus went into the temple to heal the man with the withered hand. The man's hand had been withered from birth. It was a birth defect. And when Jesus looked at him, Jesus said to him, stretch forth your hand. And the word is, when he stretched forth, the Bible says that hand became whole. Amen. Like the other. So I want to tell you tonight, whenever the master asks you to do something that you can't do, tell your neighbor, say, just do it. Yes. And that's not what Nike said. That's what he said. Just do it. Yeah. You remember that's what his mama said when they were at the wedding of Cana of Galilee, and he told them to bring them water pots and fill them up with water. And they looked at Mary kind of crazy and said, I think your son is kind of out of his mind. We told him we ran out of wine, and he come out, fill the pots up with water. And Mary said, whatever he asked you to do. I wish I had a church crowd in here. It's Friday night, y'all. He said, whatever he asked you to do, do it. He said, woman, I thirst, give me a drink. And her arrogance moved her, Helen, to challenge him. She thought he was flirting with her. When he asked her for a drink, because she knew what that meant. In a world where she came from, listen to me, ladies, in a world where she came from, she knew that whenever a man struck up a conversation with her, or showed an interest in her, or talked to her, she knew that it was always going to lead to something else. Right. She knew that just mere conversation was saying, let's become friends, let's get to know each other a little better. And she looks at him, and you know, I really think that she had to be a sister. And I said, that was one of the things on my list that I'm going to ask when I get to heaven, what color she was. Because homegirl looked at him with an attitude, and she said, you don't want no water. And the reason why I know you don't want no water, because you ain't even got no cup or no glass to put no water in. And you sitting up here on the well acting like you thirsty, and you ain't even got no pitcher to even put no water in. She brushed him off. Some of y'all know some sisters like that. Let me preach it. And she brushed him off, and out of her arrogance, she reminded him of their differences. She said, you know, you got to understand, you are a Jew and I'm a Samaritan. And you know we don't deal with one another. You know we don't get along with one another. I've heard that sometime around the church, when I put folk on committees, and then somebody come up to me after service and, Pastor, let me talk to you for a minute. Said, I ain't got no problem being on the committee, but Pastor, you know I don't get along with them. Now you know I don't do them. Y'all say amen if you can. I'll do anything you ask me to do. I'll work anywhere you want to work. But don't put me on no minute with them. Jesus said to her, he said, ma'am, if you knew the value of this water that I have, he said, sister girl, you would be asking me for some water and not me asking you for water. Amen. And all of a sudden, she started talking about what church she go to. Where she worshiped. And Jesus said to her, he said, ma'am, listen to me. He said, the hour has come. And now is the time that the Father seeks those true worshipers who will worship him in spirit. He said, but there's another time coming when the name of your church, the location of your church, how you worship and what you do when you worship will not even matter. And we sitting around here arguing and fussing. Because this church don't do devotion. This church got a praise thing. This church won't let the deacons do devotion. This church won't let the choir sing. Break it down, son. Break it down. Jesus said to her, he said, baby, he said, let me tell you what your problem is. He said, I peep your hand. He said, you are in a perpetual mode of thirst. He said, what I'm saying is, he said, listen, you come to the well to draw water. But in a few days or a few hours, you coming right back to get more water. So then you fill up, but then in a few hours, you coming back to draw more water. He said, but baby, what I'm trying to get you to understand, I'm going to fix it so you will never thirst again. Now, my little finite mind, I cannot even fathom what it would be like to not thirst. Can you imagine in your mind what it would be like if you never got thirsty anymore? If you never had the need of water, can you imagine? Jesus said to her, he said, listen, he said, I'm going to fix it. He said, you are craving fulfillment. He said, and what you are craving, your religion is not going to help you. He said, what you are craving, religion is not going to satisfy you. What you are craving, relationship is not going to satisfy you. And you've proven that. Because you looked for fulfillment in one man, you couldn't find it. Then went to another man, couldn't find it there. But he said, listen, I want you to know you at the right place. At the right time. To quench your thirst. He said to her, he said, woman, said, out of your belly will flow rivers of living water, and you will never thirst again. And notice what she says to him. She says to him, give me that water. Amen. Give it to me. Yeah. I want it. And he said to her, he said, now listen, let me tell you. He said, now the water that I'm going to give you, baby, it's not in that well. All right. All right. The water that I'm going to give you, it ain't going to fit in your picture. All right. The water that I have, it's not going to fit in your water pot. Yeah. Yeah. He said, the water that I give you. Come on. He said it'll fix you where you'll make sound decisions. Yeah. And you won't be driven by your personal dysfunction. All right. I wish I had a praying crowd here. He said, I want to fix it so that you won't have to come here for water, but you'll come to me. Yeah. He said, I want to fix it so that your latter days will be better than your early days. I want to fix it so that you'll never have a craving anymore. The Bible says she leaves her water pots. Yeah. Runs back into town. Right. Tells everybody what she heard from Jesus. Yeah. I wish I had a witness in. Yeah. She said there's something about this man. She said, I believe that he might be. She didn't realize that he was in living color. She said, I believe that he might be. The promised one. I believe that he might be. Yeah. The Messiah, the promised one that the prophets have talked about. She said, but it's something about him. Yeah. She said, now either he's the Messiah or he's on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, or Instagram. Because ain't no way in the world that man can know that much about me and my business. Lord have mercy. Watch this. And I'm through. I promise y'all I'm gonna leave it alone. I had about 11 pages and I ain't got time to finish all of this in my address. Yeah, but let me just old folks that cut across the field. Jesus shows up at the well, Evangelist Hiscock. And I thought it was rather strange that he would go to the most unlikely person in the city. We talked about it in the ministerial class. You would have thought that maybe he would have gone to the most popular person. You would have thought that maybe he would have gone to the person whose name was listed in the society column. You would have thought that he would have gone to the person whose name was listed in the who's who. You would have even thought that he would have gone to the person whose name was listed in the most likely to succeed. But what Jesus did was he went to the most unlikely woman in the city. Yeah, he went to a woman that had a reputation. Yeah, he went to a woman that no man in the city, but wanted to be associated with. Yeah, he went to a woman in the city that no other woman wanted to befriend. Yeah, he went to a woman in the city that they had wrote off. Lord, he went to that woman and asked her for a drink of water. Yeah. Now I want you to notice here in the text, because the text takes a strange turn. And in the beginning, the text starts out by talking about water. But finally, when you get to the end of the text, he's not talking about water, but he's talking about praise. Do I have a witness? And what I believe tonight is that Jesus didn't want water, but what he wanted was, he wanted that woman to worship him. Lord, he wanted that woman to praise him. Oh Lord, and I believe that we sit here in Carbon Grove Church tonight in this 125th annual session, sitting here, yes Lord, like we all burned out. But I believe tonight that what God wants is our praise. Yes Lord, I believe tonight that what God wants is our hallelujah. You want to tell somebody, my praise belongs to God. My hallelujah belongs to God. Is there anybody here tonight? If you had what God is asking for, I wonder would you give it to him tonight? We're going to grab your neighbor by the hand and tell your neighbor, what is it that you have that God is asking for? Look at him and say, neighbor, what is it that you have tonight that God is asking for? He don't want your money. He don't want your clothes. He don't want your house. He don't want your jewelry. He don't want your title. He doesn't want your position. But what the Lord wants tonight, he wants your praise. I wonder tonight if you are not too tired to stand on your feet and lift your hand and tell the Lord, thank you. Thank you for making a way for me. Thank you for holding my hand. Thank you for being a shelter in the storms of life. Let me ask somebody, is it all right? how to offer the sacrifice of praise by one Friday taking a cross and putting on his shoulder and going to a hill called Calvary. And hanging there from the 6th to the 9th hour, gave his head to the thorns, gave his side to the spear, gave his feet to the spikes and the rivets, hung his head and died, and was taken from the cross and buried in the grave and stayed there 3 days and 3 nights. But as every Baptist preacher loved to say, "Holy Sunday." He got up with all power in his hand. I want to tell you, Northwestern Baptist Association comes to Christian education. Let brotherly love continue. Love one another. Be a disciple of Christ. How to reach the masses, men of every day. For an answer Jesus gave the key. He said, if I be lifted up from the earth, I'll draw. Amen. Unto me. That's my address. God bless you.